Before a PhD begins, there is a journey that almost never appears on a CV. A quiet journey made of goodbyes, airport gates, and the strange feeling of stepping into the unknown. For many international students, it starts with a single suitcase, 23 kilos of luggage, and a whole life that somehow has to fit inside. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Confessions of a PhD Survivor. I'm Lama, and today's episode is a little bit different because I had its draft running in the background of my mind for years. This episode isn't about protocols, PIs, or the tip box trauma. Today, I'm taking you somewhere deeper. This one is about the journey before the journey, about the life you pack into a 23 kilo suitcase and the weight you carry that no one can see. So if you're an international student, this one is for you. If you supervise international students, this one is especially for you. And if you've never left home but want to understand what it feels like, welcome. Pull up a chair and join us. Let's talk about something we rarely say out loud. Leaving your country for a PhD is brave, but it's also unbelievably hard. And how hard it feels depends on the why that pushed you onto that plane. Some of us leave because we want the best education out there, to study with great minds in great institutes with great opportunities. But for many of us, the story has extra layers. Sometimes the why is also about safety or stability or escaping a system that doesn't see your potential. Sometimes it's the hope of building a life your parents dreamed of but never had the chance to create. And sometimes, let's be honest, it's a quiet kind of survival. Whatever the reason, the moment you decide to move, you split your life into before and after. When you leave your country for a master's or PhD, you don't just pack clothes. You pack your parents' dreams. You pack your culture, your habits, your comfort zone, your memories, and squeeze them because airline companies decided 23 kilos is generous. When you arrive, you're not just starting a master or a PhD. You are rebuilding a whole life from zero, emotionally, socially, financially, administratively. You're learning the science and the system and the culture and the language, all while trying to act like a functioning adult, motivated and ready to produce data. But every international student carries a version of this truth. Some days you feel unbelievably powerful, like, look at me, I crossed continents for a dream only I could see. And other days, everything feels heavy. Suddenly, your PhD isn't your only job. You have a part-time role as your own secretary, immigration lawyer, translator, and IT technician. And that's why I want to say this clearly. You are already braver than you think. Now, it's time to talk about the real villain of the story. Bureaucracy. Yes, best represented by prefecture, or whatever its evil twin is called in your country. If my PhD was a fantasy movie, the prefecture would be the final boss. But unfortunately, you have to fight it in the first week. Picture this, you, the kind international student, armed with nothing but a folder, hope, and a level of French that barely covers the bakery vocabulary. Then in the distance, you see it, a grey fortress. No joy, no mercy. You approach thinking, today I will get my appointment, let's get this done. The prefecture responds, bring us these 17 documents you didn't know existed and also 300 euros and meet us in 2027. It's like the country gives you an initiation test. Survive this, then we'll talk. Funny enough, this whole bureaucratic adventure ends up teaching you survival skills that the PhD itself will proudly reuse later. What makes this more stressful is that there is no pause button. You will work full-time in the lab and full-time outside it, just trying to exist legally. So to all the warriors still marching toward the prefecture fortress, may your documents be complete and your appointments be real. Now, let's talk about something every international student knows deep in their bones. That strange, heavy truth that doesn't allow you to fall apart. Because unlike some of our classmates, our career choices aren't just career choices. They are a proof that leaving home made sense. They are the invisible contract we signed with life the moment we stepped onto that plane. And since we are being honest here, let me share with you a piece of my story. When I left home at 22 years old, I wasn't just moving abroad. I was launching myself into the unknown with exactly 1,200 euros in my pocket. For some people, that's a vacation budget, I know. But I did not ask myself, what if it doesn't work? Because simply that wasn't an option. There was no plan B. So when people told me back then, just take a break if you're not feeling well, or maybe look for another opportunity if the environment is draining you, I wanted to laugh and maybe cry a little. Because for many of us, being unwell isn't a pause button. It feels like a risk, a crack in the system, a threat to everything we built from nothing in a foreign country on limited resources, with all the pressure of the people who believed in us sitting quietly on our shoulders. And somehow, without even realizing it, our brains start rearranging priorities. Passion? Secondary. Mental health? Optional. Rest? A luxury item. Because everything feels too linked, too fragile, too dependent on staying okay enough to keep going. You start telling yourself, I should push more, I should be grateful, I'm lucky to be here. But here's the truth, the part nobody says out loud. You are not here because you're lucky. You are here because you're strong, because you earned this, because you kept showing up even when everything inside you was shaking. Because you left a whole life behind and decided to build a new one from scratch with a dream. So if you're listening to this and you are exhausted, remember, you're carrying more than most people ever will, and you're still moving. And that's courage. And yet, even in the middle of all of that pressure and survival mode, something unexpected was quietly forming inside us. You don't notice it at first. You're too busy adapting, translating, budgeting, surviving. But slowly, without a single TED Talk or motivational playlist, you start developing superpowers. Strength, adaptability, a global identity that refuses to shrink. You learn to make home out of your own presence. You learn to reinvent yourself in ways your past self wouldn't believe. And one day, usually while you're carrying groceries up to the 5th floor on a rainy day, you realize that even with 23 kilos of luggage, you've been carrying infinite resilience all along. If you've lived any part of this story, the leaving, the building, the surviving, then you already know how heavy this journey can be. And that's exactly why we have to talk about it. Because every time we share our stories, we make the road a little less dark for the next person walking it. We turn our struggles into examples. We turn our survival into guidance. We turn our loneliness into a community. And yes, we owe kindness to the countries, labs, institutes that opened their doors to us. But we also owe even more kindness to ourselves, to the version of us who dreamed, to the version of us who stayed when it was easier to quit, to the version of us who is still trying. This is Lama signing off from Confessions of a PhD Survivor. Thank you all for tuning in, and before I put the mic off, I want you to keep something in mind. Your story didn't start easy, so it won't end small. See you in the next one.